How is everybody? Oh, sorry, a little technical difficulty getting logged back into the page just now. But we are here and we are ready to start our live fish breakdown demo, zero waste. So, are you ready? First thing you're gonna need to break down a fish is a fish. So, I'm gonna grab my little friend Jerry here. I don't know if you guys can see this beautiful fish I have. So I have one whole salmon here. It is quite lovely. I'm just going to dry him off a little bit because it's easier to hold on to break down the fish. There we go. Just adjusting this a little so you can see our friend. Now, to get started with your fish, first thing you want to do is check for scales. If you have a fish scaler, you can use that, or you can use a knife, or even a spoon. I just want to get the scales off where I'm going to be cutting, because your knife will kind of dance across the scales instead of cutting into the fish. But these scales are actually pretty valuable. And again, this is zero waste. So all of these scales, I'm gonna save because they actually fry up beautifully. Fried fish scales are super crispy, nice and light, and a lot of fun to sprinkle on top of things like tartare or even a seared piece of salmon, and it just adds a nice crunchy texture. So we have our first side here. See him? This is Jerry. First cut I'm gonna make is along the back loin here. Here I have a fillet knife. Fillet knife is a flexible blade, so it's used a lot in filleting fish. And we're just gonna cut into the fish here, right along the back. And we wanna stay just on top of the bones. You don't wanna go under because then you're cutting into the next fillet. We want to take this entire side off nice and cleanly. So if you see here, we're right on top of the bones. That's where the bones are, right there. So if you go right on top of the dorsal fin, it'll pretty much guide you. Now I'm gonna turn it to face me so I can see what I'm doing. So Jerry's gonna face the other direction. It's good to have a roll of paper towels handy. I know during these times, paper towels are kind of a commodity, but if you've got some, use them. If not, you can use a towel and just continually rinse it. A little hard for me to do on camera, keep going to the sink rinsing. So, here I'm just gonna cut until I've reached the spine. Once I have touched it, I know how to guide myself the rest of the way. So, there's two ways you can do fillet of salmon. You can take off the entire side in one swipe, right across the spine, from tail to head end, and that's fine, that's great. If you know how to angle your knife, you don't miss a lot of meat, which is amazing. I'm going to kind of show you guys another way. So if you're a little apprehensive about it, you can kind of do it like another round fish. I'm gonna turn this sideways. Oh, sorry, I can't turn my phone while recording. My apologies. So I'll try to turn the fish back to you so you can see it. So we have the cut all the way down to the spine. So what we're gonna do here, now I put my fillet knife down and I have my chef's knife. This is an all-purpose kind of knife. I'm gonna make a cut down here at the tail, just straight across, down to where I hit the bone. And I'm gonna do the same thing behind the head on the other end. So up here, I'm angling my knife forward because there's a beautiful chunk of meat right behind the neck where the spine meets the head on all fish. So you don't want to miss that. It's very valuable and you don't want to have that go to waste. So we're going to cut into the fish right behind the head and just under where the gill line is. If you see that, here's the gill. Here is the cut that we made. Hi, from Mill Valley. Good to see you, Jennifer. This is a truly beautiful fish. The Quarry salmon that I have here, you can already see the color and I haven't even completely cut into it yet. It's a beautiful pink color. Again, this is naturally derived from what they feed the fish. They don't feed it any food dye to turn it red like some farmers do. So a beautiful fish, and I'm going to cut through here and holding up this part, again, just cutting till I touch the bone. I'm just gonna cut straight across the spine. It's actually easier, sorry, it might not be the best angle for you, but it's the best angle for me to cut it and I wanna stay safe. So, once you hit the spine, you see I have it exposed here. My knife is gonna run straight across the spine towards the head. I'm gonna use the tail as a handle and my knife is just gonna make one smooth motion to the front. I do want to be aware of anything that I'm cutting off here when I get to the belly. So I'm going to make sure that my knife stays under this cut right here so I don't miss any of that beautiful salmon belly that has all that high fat content, those beautiful omega-3s that are so good for your brain. And you see I'm not using a really long knife. Yeah, the salmon is almost bigger than me. So I'm not using a really long knife because I don't want it to go all the way through to the belly. I really want to just run along the spine. But once I've done that, voila. I'm just going to disconnect it here under the rib cage. I have a little piece still attached there. And look at that. We have our first fillet of salmon and we have our fish. So Jerry is now completely cut down to the spine. We have a little meat attached to the bones on either side, but that's okay. We're gonna use that. Again, this is a zero waste, so we will put that to good use. We're just gonna turn the fish over and do the exact same thing on the other side. You can do it this way, or you can come under the spine, since you can already see where it is. Hear those bones cracking? And then do the same thing towards the tail. And there we have our fish in our second fillet. So now we're just going to cut through the spine to get the head off. And there, we have two beautiful fillets of a truly incredible and beautiful salmon. This is our second fillet here. Ooh, lovely. And I'm just gonna sit that one to the side. So we all know what we can do with the fillets of salmon. You can cook it in almost any fashion, poach it, saute it, fry it, do whatever you want. But we're gonna focus on the cuts that most people don't use, kind of like this tail here. So, I'm not sure about you guys, but I love to go out for sushi. And one of the things that's on the menus at sushi restaurants is a hamachi kama. Well, we can also do that with a salmon kama. That is the collarbone right here, and all the meat that comes off of that is really fatty and really delicious, so don't let that go to waste. If you like fish cheeks, like I do also, roast the head whole. So here, I have a quarter sheet tray. It's a small tray. I can either take the head off of the collarbone, again, just cutting behind the gills and saving this part right here. And the collar is best served with just a little squeeze of lemon, salt, pepper, a little oil, just very simple. It's such a beautiful fish, you don't really need to add much to it. Some fish needs a little love. This salmon doesn't need much at all to make it delicious because it already is. So, here you have your collar and the head. I like the head meat, so what I'm gonna do is put it right on the tray. I would season this on both sides with salt and pepper, rub it with a little oil, maybe even a little bit of brown sugar to make it extra crispy, and I would just roast this in the oven at about 450, 475, just for about 10 minutes until the skin is really crispy, and you can have that as a nice snack. Who doesn't like hamachi kama, salmon kama, and the cheeks are delicious. The cheeks of fish are one of those cuts that people take in the kitchen of restaurants before it ever goes out to the dining room, because most diners don't want to see the head. We love it. It is delicious, it's flavorful, and it has some of the best meat on the fish. Now, here we have the bones. This is the backbone of the fish. There is still some meat attached to this, so what I would do if I were working in a restaurant, hint, hint, or even at home, is scrape some of this meat off to make tartare. If you're not a fan of tartare, you can also make salmon burgers. Chop it up, form it into little patties, and you have beautiful salmon burgers. They cook super fast, just about 1 minute per side, maybe even less, 45 seconds, and that's it. But you definitely want to keep all this meat. There's not a ton of it, and it is right along the bone, so be careful that you don't cut into the bones. But this can definitely go to use for a tartare. When we can finally all get together again, you can have friends over, make a little tartare, serve it on endive, and have a great snack. The bones here, what you want to do is just wash in cold water 2 to 3 times. That's going to help draw out some of the excess fat and some of that heavy flavor that salmon can do if you use it for a stock. And you're just going to put it in a large pot just like this with cold water and put it on the stove. It makes an amazing soup. There is a Scandinavian, or actually it's a soup from Finland, to be specific, that uses salmon stock. You can mix it with typical mirepoix, carrot, celery, and onion, and simmer it just for about 30 minutes. It does not take long at all. It's not like making chicken or beef stock. Fish stock is done in 30 minutes. You don't want to overcook the bones and overcook the fish and pull out too much excess flavor. And with salmon, because the flavor is so strong, you don't want to reduce the stock. You just want to pull the flavor out and then cut it off and let it sit. Once it cools to just above room temperature, strain it and you're good to go. You can freeze it, add dill, add potatoes, and you have a beautiful, beautiful salmon soup that I absolutely love. It's actually a soup that I served at a dinner at the James Beard House recently with Quarry salmon. And we had a beautiful slice of raw salmon on top and a little piece of salmon skin chicharron with it. And that broth was made from the salmon bones. So we have uses for the head. We have uses for the bones. Let's see what we can do with this skin. So our first fillet here, I'm going to pull off some of the excess bones that I see and set them on the side. To take the skin off, similar to what we did when we took the fillet off the fish, we're going to start at the tail and give yourself a little piece to hold on to. You're going to cut just until you hit the skin, but do not cut through the skin. You definitely want to keep that there. And you want to stay right on top of it, just like you stayed on top of the bones. And you're just going to move your fish, more than you're moving your knife, you're moving the fish here. And you're just going to kind of wiggle it back and forth, keeping your knife at a pretty even angle to the table under you. Now, I'm at home. I'm not at a restaurant, so I don't have a cutting board big enough for a whole salmon. But there, look, we have our skin off of the fillet. You can see all the beautiful scales on it, and don't worry about taking them off. Like I said, they fry up nicely. So if you're making salmon skin chicharron, leave the scales on. You don't have to take them off. But if you want to take them off, what you could do is save them, strain them, and rinse them in cold water and fry them separately. Again, I love to sprinkle fried fish scales on top of a lot of dishes. It goes nicely on salads. It goes great on top of rice if you're doing fried rice, or even searing a piece of salmon. These little guys here fry up super crisp and delicious. Little salt, that's all you need. So again, nothing goes to waste here. If you're paying, sometimes $20-something for a pound of salmon, if you're lucky enough to get your hands on a whole fish, you definitely want to put it to good use. You want to get your money's worth, and you don't want to waste any of this beautiful product. It would be such a shame to get your hands on a salmon as beautiful as this and not use every part of it. So here, look, I can't flip it too nicely, but we have our fillet. I have a little fin attached still here. Let me cut that guy off. And voila. This is the back side that has all of the skin removed. So what I would do is clean that off. Back to my fillet knife here. You're just going to cut right under. It's kind of like a fatty connective tissue. It's like another, it's kind of another muscle. I need to check with the team at Quarry to make sure that is a separate muscle. In restaurants, we always call it the bloodline, but I have a feeling that's wrong. Let's ask the experts, not, just the people who cook it. I don't know fish anatomy that well. I know it when it comes to breaking down, but not in terms of muscle names. Cows and pigs, I know the muscle names. Salmon, not so sure. I've always heard it called the bloodline, but again, it feels more like a fatty connective tissue that just kind of holds the skin to the fish, to the actual interior flesh. So, one of my other favorite things to do, and this is something that we experienced at the James Beard house at that same beautiful Quarry dinner that we did, not that long ago either. It feels like it was just yesterday that we were able to all have 60 people for dinner before we all got shut down and locked in our homes. But this piece here, this fatty kind of gray tissue and muscle that comes from the back, we're not throwing that away either. I know my husband calls me cheap, calls me a lot of things, but he loves everything I cook, so he can call me what he wants. He eats all the food. Here, I'm just going to continue taking all of that off because this is not going to get wasted. A lot of people throw this away, and I understand if you're in a rush and you don't have any particular use in mind for it, you're just kind of left with this fatty tissue on your hands that you don't really know what to do with. But now I will let you know there is an amazing use. Butter. Who doesn't like butter? I know moderation for everything, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to get like the freshman 15 or the quarantine 15, but salmon fat butter is amazing. I don't want to give you guys all my secrets for the cooking that I do, but some things are just game changers that you can't really not share. It would be selfish. So the salmon fat butter is one of my favorite things to do. Once you've gotten all this gray connective tissue and you're left just with this beautiful blush pink fillet of cleaned salmon, we have a little more fat here on the belly. I don't want to cut into the belly because I want that beautiful, beautiful belly to do something else, like grill, sear it at a really high temperature and get a little char on it. But the belly is so different from the back loin. This part of the fish is more lean. This part is more fat. So we're going to keep them separate, but we have great uses for all of it. So this stuff here, again, this kind of gray tissue that's on the back of the fish. Let me grab my pot. Luckily, it's not far. Bam, we have a pot. what we're gonna do is put all this gray connective tissue that most people don't like to eat, most people throw away and don't know what to do with. We're gonna put it in a pot and put it on super, super low heat. What is that gonna do? Render the fat. Just like when you're cooking bacon, salmon fat renders out the same way. If you've ever cooked bacon, turkey bacon, pork bacon, beef bacon, whatever, you know how to do this. Just start the flame low and turn it up a little bit higher, but try not to go all the way up to medium. You want to stay at about medium low at the highest because you're really just trying to pull out the fat, and the slower and longer you cook it, the more fat will render out. So here we have a very low flame. We're cooking our fat. You can throw in a tablespoon or two of butter just to get it started, but you really don't need much. And then when it comes off, what I would do is whip it with room temperature or softened butter, maybe about 1 stick or 2 sticks of butter, depending on how much you want to make. You can pop it in the freezer and it lasts for at least 3 months. Mine never really makes it that long because I tend to use it a lot. But I've definitely used it at 3 months and it was just fine. I usually use mine up within about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But delicious on cornbread, delicious on brioche, and especially delicious on like a really hearty Danish or Scandinavian rye bread. One of my favorite. Especially when it's like almost burnt and super toasted. Oh, nothing better. So we're back to our beautiful fillet here. I'm just scraping off some of the excess scales. And again, we are not throwing these scales away. Here I have a little strainer. What I do is just collect all the scales that I can right in here. Just scrape them up, put them in your strainer, rinse them off later, shake them out on a paper towel to dry, and then stick them in the fridge. When you're having anything, I swear you can put these things on everything. When you're getting ready to cook, just put a little oil in a saute pan and fry them up. Scoop them right out, back on a piece of a paper towel, salt, and you're good to go. It's almost like croutons, but thinner and healthier. As Pam Smith said, it is the alpha of omegas, so you get all your omega fatty acids. And again, this beautiful, beautiful fish here, this is the belly. I'm not sure if you can see the fat content on that. You see the fat lines, those white lines of connective tissue are a little bit thicker than what you see back here on the lean part. Okay, that's just the camera angle. But these are actually a lot thinner than they are on the belly. The belly has a much higher fat content, a little bit of a richer flavor, so delicious. I like to separate the edge of the belly where it gets thin and fatty from the rest of it, because then it'll cook a little more evenly. And then you won't have one side that's cooked almost well done and the other side is nice and rare. I'm not sure if you guys can, I wish we had smell-o-vision, but we're starting to render out some fat here. This fish is not super fatty, so it does take a little while to render the fat. It's not like some salmon that just has sorry, I don't mean to say disgusting, but some salmon, if you make a stock or a butter out of it, the flavor of it is just really heavy. This salmon, the Quarry salmon, is clean and nice. It's a more lean salmon than it is fatty, so it takes a little while to render out the fat. So low and slow, just cook those for about 20, 25 minutes, and then strain it, cool the fat, and when your fat is nice and cool, just whip it with the butter. Do I use it in any cooking? Yes, I use salmon fat butter all the time. So if I'm cooking any vegetable that's gonna be served with my salmon, asparagus, green beans, even Brussels sprouts, so good. Toss them with a little bit of that salmon fat butter, and you get kind of that oceanic minerality essence of salmon without the overwhelming flavor. It just complements it really well. You can also throw into the butter to make it, it's already a compound butter once you've added the salmon fat to it. But if you add tarragon, chives, parsley, dill, oh my God. I swear it is one of the best things you'll have. And if you're craving something and you don't want to eat a full meal, slather a little bit of that on a piece of toasted bread and just your body will feel all warm like you've had a full meal and a cooked piece of salmon without actually having to do all the work. It's kind of my cheat when I don't want to cook, but I want like fish and I'm craving salmon. And the more I've eaten the quarry, the more I'm like kind of craving it more often. So, speaking of, I'm not going to wait too much because the fish is really good. I used up my last batch of salmon fat butter, but I have plenty of salmon right here. Where's my little salt? Here we go. So this fish is really pristine, really clean, really nice flavor. There are some people in this world, I don't quite understand them, but some people who say they don't like salmon, that's because they have not tried this. It's clean. It doesn't overwhelm your palate. It tastes like salmon. It doesn't taste like feed. It doesn't taste heavy. It just tastes clean and crisp. And the flavor has already started to dissipate. So for a stock, if you've ever had a stock or soup that was made with salmon, a lot of times it's almost hard to eat more than a few bites because the flavor just gets too intense. And you have this like heavy, fatty palate feeling. It just feels like it's coating your mouth and it won't let go. This one doesn't do that. Your stock will be clear, it'll be clean. Give it 30 minutes of a very low bare simmer, almost like you're poaching it. And you have a beautiful flavor without that heavy fattiness. You can chill it overnight. Whatever fat does accumulate on the top, lift it out and whip that into your salmon butter. Again, zero waste. This fish is too good to let it go to waste. Walk through the belly butter recipe again. So the butter is actually with the fat line that came off the back. The belly, I just eat it. The salmon belly I actually like to cook, but that gray kind of fatty connective tissue that holds the skin to the salmon, that's what we cut off and that's what we're rendering for our butter. So let me show you over there. Let's give my hands a rinse. So I'll show you the pot that we have working. So you see that fat that's starting to accumulate in the pot? That is just going to keep cooking. I'm just going to let that go and continue to cook and render out fat. It's just like you're waiting for bacon to get crispy. You just keep cooking it super low and slow. And then the same type of strainer that you use for your fish scales to rinse them off, strain it through something like that into a clear, clean bowl, pop it in the fridge. It's not going to get as hard as butter. It's not the kind of fat that is super solid at even a cold temperature. It's still going to be a little soft. That's why you want to get it chilled and super cold before you whip it with your room temperature butter. The room temperature regular cow's milk butter is what's going to give it that structure. So once you whipped in the salmon fat, it's going to make the regular butter softer and the salmon fat firmer. So it'll be like the perfect consistency to spread on bread, even straight out of the freezer. And again, it works great for cooking. I wonder what vegetables I'm going to cook tonight. But I'm probably going to put some salmon fat butter in it. It's that good. Trust me, you will love it. Any questions about what to do with your beautiful fillet of salmon? From here, you can just take out the pin bones. And look at that. The pin bones have a little bit of a little fleshy membrane on the end. Again, don't throw these away. Add them to your pot where you're rendering the salmon fat, and you'll get just a little bit more flavor out of it. There is a use for everything, I promise. We don't like to let anything go to waste in my household, especially because we don't know how long we're going to be locked down. So I need to make sure it lasts. So here we have some of our pin bones from the fillet of salmon. I think I got them all. Oh, wait, missed one. There we go. So great, just from that side, we're gonna take these bones, pop them right on in, and just let everything come out. It's gonna give you great flavor for your salmon fat butter. You have your salmon head, which you can broil or roast at a high temperature to get that beautiful collar and all the meat that comes off of it. And again, just salt, pepper, a little squeeze of lemon, so good. You can grill it if you have access to a grill, or you can just broil it for a few minutes. If you want to cook the head whole, like I like to do, because you get this meat right here that's on the back of the head, and you also get the cheeks. Ooh, so delicious. They're like the little tender part that all the chefs love that we never send to the dining rooms for guests to eat because we've already snacked on them. Roast it at 475 or 450 degrees for about 10 or 15 minutes. The skin will get blistered and crispy. Give a little bit of lemon, snack away. Watch TV. It's a great lunch. Have it with a little salad. A lot healthier than frying chicken or having a sandwich or grilled cheese. All those comfort foods that we want to eat when we're at home. This will keep you healthy, keep you sated, and give your body everything that you need to keep your immune system strong during this time, which is especially important. So I'm gonna get to cooking dinner for tonight. I'm gonna go ahead and make that salmon stew or salmon chowder. I'm gonna whip up some salmon fat butter. I'll post pictures of them later. And if you want to see anything else, just ask. I've got this beautiful fish, so if you have any suggestions, let me know. I've got a lot of it. Thanks guys for joining. It was great seeing you. I hope everybody is staying safe and protected. Wash your hands frequently, and I will see you again soon. Thank you.